They had been trained to expect precision, artillery carefully scheduled, armor advancing on its own timetable, infantry following orders that moved like clockwork on a map. What the German officers along the Kasserine Pass did not expect in February 1943 was chaos that somehow worked. On February 19, 1943, in the rocky folds of central Tunisia, Oberst-Lieutenant Hans-Georg Hildebrandt of the 10th Panzer Division watched American forces collapse under German pressure, and then, hours later, watched something new emerge. U.S. units that had been scattered and bloodied began returning to the fight in a way that made no doctrinal sense to him. Tanks appeared without warning. Artillery fire fell not in neat barrages, but in violent, rolling concentrations that shifted minute by minute. Fighter-bombers screamed overhead, diving almost recklessly low, striking German gun positions that had not yet fired a shot.
"This is not how armies are supposed to fight," Hildebrandt reportedly muttered to his adjutant.
Yet it was exactly how the Americans were learning to fight, by merging infantry, armor, artillery, engineers, and air power into a single, constantly communicating organism. Combined arms was not new as a theory. The Germans themselves had pioneered it in 1939 and 1940. What shocked them was how fast the Americans absorbed it, scaled it, and then bent it into something far more flexible than German planners had anticipated. By July 10, 1943, on the beaches of Gela in Sicily, the shock had turned into unease. As the U.S. 1st Infantry Division struggled inland, German and Italian counterattacks surged toward the coast. General Alfredo Guzzoni expected the Americans to be pinned against the sea. Instead, offshore naval guns, 14-inch shells from the USS Texas, crashed down within minutes of frontline requests. German veterans of the Eastern Front stared as entire armored thrusts were shattered by fire called in from radios barely larger than a loaf of bread. Gefreiter Karl Heinemann of the Hermann Göring Division later described the moment in a letter home dated July 13, 1943. "We advance, and the ground erupts. Not later, not scheduled. It is as if their ships can see us." They could not see, but they could hear. American forward observers, often lying flat in olive groves with dirt in their mouths, spoke directly to battleships, artillery batteries, and air controllers. The Americans were not just coordinating arms, they were compressing time. Nowhere did this compression terrify German units more than in Normandy. On June 12, 1944, 6 days after D-Day, elements of the Panzer-Lehr Division attempted to move during daylight near Tilly-sur-Seulles. Lehr was elite, veteran instructors, the best equipment Germany could still field. Yet every time their half-tracks rolled out from hedgerow cover, American fighter bombers arrived. P-47 Thunderbolts dove with a sound German soldiers described as a tearing sky. Rockets slammed into columns. When Lehr dispersed, American artillery found them. When they dug in, American infantry followed behind creeping barrages that advanced with uncanny timing. Major Fritz Bayerlein, Lehr's commander, was blunt in his post-war interrogation. The Americans had learned to combine everything, air, guns, tanks, faster than we could react. It was not bravery alone, it was system. For the German infantrymen crouched in a Norman hedgerow, the experience was psychological torture. There was no safe phase of battle. Silence no longer meant safety. It meant aircraft were refueling. Stillness meant guns were being laid. An American attack did not announce itself, it unfolded. On July 25, 1944, during Operation Cobra near Saint-Lô, that unfolding became overwhelming. At 9:38 a.m., over 1,800 American bombers carpeted German positions. The earth buckled. Survivors emerged deaf, stunned, their nerves shredded. Before they could reorganize, American artillery opened fire. Then tanks. Then infantry riding on half-tracks, firing as they advanced. A wounded German NCO from the 352nd Infantry Division later told an American interrogator, "We did not know which enemy to fight first." That confusion was the point. Unlike German doctrine, which still relied heavily on pre-planned fire and rigid chains of command, American combined arms empowered junior leaders. A platoon leader with a radio could summon artillery within minutes. A battalion commander could redirect air support on the fly. Engineers blew gaps through hedgerows while tanks fired point blank, infantry hugging their steel for protection. Every branch covered another's weakness. By September 1944, in the Lorraine region near Araucourt, German armored commanders believed fog would neutralize American air power. On September 19, the 111th Panzer Brigade attacked through mist-covered fields. What followed stunned them. American tank destroyers of the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion lay in ambush, guided by ground observers and artillery firing blind but precise concentrations. When the fog lifted, American fighter bombers returned immediately, striking retreating panzers already disoriented by indirect fire. Oberst Hyacinth Graf Strachwitz, one of Germany's most experienced tank commanders, reportedly remarked afterward that American strength lay not in superior tanks, but in their ability to make every weapon speak at once. For German soldiers raised on the idea of decisive Schwerpunkt, the single overwhelming thrust, the American method felt suffocating. There was no focal point to break, no single command post to destroy. Kill one observer, another took his place. Silence one gun battery, another answered. By December 1944, during the Ardennes offensive, German troops initially advanced with confidence, but by December 23rd, when the skies cleared, the old fear returned. American air power re-entered the battlefield, seamlessly reconnected to ground units already holding by artillery and infantry coordination. Even surrounded units like the 101st Airborne at Bastogne integrated artillery fires so dense that German attackers described it as iron rain. A captured officer from the 26th Volksgrenadier Division summed it up coldly. The Americans fight like an orchestra without a conductor, and yet the music continues. That was the final shock. German doctrine depended on brilliance at the top. American doctrine assumed chaos and built a system that thrived inside it. By 1945, on the road to the Rhine, German soldiers no longer asked when the Americans would attack, they asked how many ways at once. And in that question lived the quiet admission that the battlefield had changed, faster than Germany could adapt. The Americans had not simply copied combined arms, they had industrialized it, humanized it, and placed its power into the hands of exhausted sergeants with muddy boots and working radios. For the Germans who faced it, the realization came too late. They were no longer fighting separate weapons, but a single, relentless machine made of men.